Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric. I have been to most of the major amusement parks in the United States and Canada, and my audience is mostly from North America, and that is generally my area of expertise. However, I went to Thorpe Park on the first day of July. It was a Monday and it was very crowded. So maybe I was unlucky, but I did not get to experience all of the park, and it just seems like the park's often very busy. So in this park review, things are going to be a little different from usual. I didn't get on everything, I shared the day with Chessington so I didn't arrive at opening, and I only spent 4 total hours in the park, not nearly doing everything I could have and frankly wanted to do. Therefore, I can't give full conclusive thoughts on the park's quality like I usually do in my reviews. However, I did gain some good insight that could help you plan a trip to the park, and as a foreigner visiting, I can draw comparisons to North American parks, seeing how similar and how different it is, and talking about what I like, what I don't like, and hopefully making a somewhat useful review overall. Let's begin. Arriving to the park, my party was driving through a quaint but pleasant town, and we were kind of surprised that was so close to the main park because it's a pretty huge place. And Thorpe Park is actually on an island. That's a very fun little thing. Once you park, and you walk over to the entrance gate, you have to cross a footbridge to get into the park. And while on the bridge, you can actually see some of the rides. That's super fun. And to draw a comparison for the first time to a North American park, La Ronde in Montreal is also on an island. This park, I think, is not as good as La Ronde with the lake because that one takes full advantage. You can see the surrounding city, there's many observation-based rides, and some rides go all the way to the edge of the island. Thorpe Park, outside of the bridge, you only really get a few views from the top of the lift hills and not a whole lot else. It doesn't really feel like you're on an island once you're in the park. And this leads into a general note on the atmosphere of the park, mainly in the terms of appearance. It's very reminiscent of the average American park. Usually, you hear about European parks being very highly themed. There are more theme parks than amusement parks typically. Things like Phantasialand and Europa Park in Germany, those are some of the most beautiful looking theme parks ever. Just based on what I know, I've not been to those. But this one is definitely more amusement park through and through. It's not really themed. The midways are pretty bare bones, there's not a ton of interesting architecture, and outside of the facades for the roller coasters, there isn't a ton to them in terms of theming. And some rides do kind of look like a roller coaster tycoon style being plopped down. Even compared to the somewhat nearby Alton Towers, the park appearance is not really a strong suit at all. However, maybe due to my frequent visits and enjoyment of Six Flags parks, I don't really mind. I've personally always considered theming more of an added bonus, rather than a necessity for a park. I'm more interested, frankly, in upkeep and landscaping, and this park does a good job with that. It looks pleasant despite not having a ton of theming, and as a result, I think it has a pretty good atmosphere and appearance, and next to most American parks, it's upper tier. On that note, the major roller coasters as you're walking on the main paths have an incredible presence. They're massive, imposing, and also look great. And the first roller coaster to talk about is Saw the Ride. Saw the Ride was the first I rode, and it exemplifies 2 of the most important things I can tell you about this park. First off, single rider lines. Select rides at Thorpe Park have a single rider line, meaning individuals can get in this line, and when there's an empty seat in the row, be sent on the ride, generally not waiting as long as the main line. This year, Saw the Ride, Hyperia, and Samurai had single rider lines. This could change in 2025, they might have different ones, rides that currently have it may no longer have it, so definitely keep an eye on that and try to look that up before you go. Personally, I love single rider lines. I think they should be more common. They improve ride capacity, and do sometimes allow you to skip a wait by a pretty large margin. In my experience, the wait time for single riders on this ride depend on the employees. While in the holding area, there was an employee that was sending many single riders through, which made me think I'd get on in 15 minutes against the 75-minute main line. However, a new guy swapped in, and he was sending far fewer people. So there is a bit of a difference, and you cannot automatically count in the single rider line to skip a crazy amount. When in the actual station, we waited a pretty long time because pretty much everybody was in even numbers, but it only took a total of 35 minutes to get on the ride, presumably shaving off 40 minutes of waiting. And I was there with a party of 5 total people. We all did single rider, all got off around the same time. So I do recommend the single rider line on busy days. If the standby line is only something like 15-20 minutes, definitely go standby. But single rider line can be very helpful. The other important thing about Saw the Ride is the theme. This ride is in fact themed to the Saw movie franchise, and these are, for those who don't know, horror films. It's very rare to see a horror-themed ride in the US. You have haunted mansions here and there, but generally there's only one ride in a park that's scary, and it's not really themed to something, it's just a bunch of crazy scares put in. But this is very interesting to me because there's clearly an audience that likes this sort of thing. Halloween haunts are super popular at theme parks around the world, and I think these darker themes like Saw should be more common. They do appeal to a pretty large audience, and they actually do enhance the rides. They add a certain sense of peril you don't get from just going fast. When you have big blades or scary audio cues going on during the main ride, it can feel a bit scarier. And this carries over to rides like The Swarm, having a whole post-apocalyptic city theme, Nemesis Inferno having a whole volcano theme, and even the family coaster of the park being Walking Dead the ride. It's a very unique kind of thrill, and I greatly appreciate the existence of it. For Saw the Ride itself, I found the roller coaster a little disappointing. I love the indoor section. This is where the theming really shines, and the main inversion indoors is a super fun moment. The main outdoor drop is the steepest in the UK, and it does feel quite steep, so I do enjoy that part. Afterwards, the ride is sort of janky and not super well paced compared to other rides from the same manufacturer. I compare it most to Mystery Mine at Dollywood. Well themed with some lackluster outdoor sections, but these are much better than that one. Overall, a good ride, my third favorite I got on, but not amazing. What is amazing is Hyperia. This one, I used the single rider line as well, and it probably saved an hour. The main wait was consistently 2 hours long the whole day, and I don't think this is going to die down anytime soon, because not only is this a new ride, but it is a very, very good one. It's the best in the park, and it's a record breaker, so the popularity will probably make the line very long, but fortunately, the trains are dispatched very quickly, the operations were great, so the line was never stacking and it was always moving. That said, it is still a very long line. Another note, the theme of Hyperia is weird. There's a goddess named Hyperia that was made up for the park's story, and she uses her steel wings to fly over the island because she can't swim or something like that. The UK parks, they try harder than the US parks to theme the roller coasters. For example, in the US, you'd have Viper. It's called Viper, but there's nothing Viper themed about the ride. Here, Hyperia is actually telling a bit of a story, but they sort of stop halfway. Alton Towers and Chessington did the same thing. Like with Chessington, Mandrill Mayhem, it's confusing as to whether you're a mandrill or you're on an adventure stampeding with the mandrills. This one is similarly confusing. Am I Hyperia? Am I the goddess? Am I riding the goddess? Did the goddess build a roller coaster? What's going on? It's not a big deal, and fortunately, the theme does not drag down the incredible layout. This Mock Rides hypercoaster is the tallest, fastest, and longest roller coaster in the UK. Its biggest issue is the brief duration, and there's only really 6 notable elements before the ride is done. Luckily, these elements are some of the best and most thrilling of any roller coaster I've done. The first drop is world class, and the non-inverting Immelman and outer bank turn into a barrel roll drop are elements unlike anything I've done in the US. The stall is more similar to US rides, but it might be the best of its kind. You're upside down for quite a long period. The ride feels fast and the elements are massive, so you still have time to soak in those great individual moments. I'm excited to see awesome elements like this from Mock Rides, potentially coming to the US someday. But for now, the UK is something no US roller coaster can quite compete with, and it makes Hyperia the best roller coaster in the park. Two other coasters I got on were Stealth and Colossus. Let's talk about each. Stealth goes from 0 to 80 miles per hour, or 128.7 kilometers per hour, in 1.8 seconds, making it a contender for the fastest acceleration on any roller coaster. And you can feel that. The layout's very short, it's just up the hill, go back to the station, and you're done. But the ride is very fun, keeping a strong sense of speed and intensity throughout that short duration. It's still a great ride despite these shortcomings, and it is my second favorite at the park. Colossus is a weird one. It is an intimate 10 inversion roller coaster, living up to the name, going upside down 10 times. It is a bizarre one. It goes upside down 4 times in the row at the very end to help clinch that record, and it was clearly just made to get the record for most inversions. The gimmick is charming, and that section, while it's fun to say whoa through 4 different inversions in a row, is admittedly a very uncomfortable and weird section. The ride is intense, and it's sort of tucked away in its own little jungle with some fun architecture, so I enjoy the appearance and thrills of the ride. But ultimately, it has a very weird layout. It feels like a classic aerodynamics looping coaster to an extent, but also is completely different because of the way it ends. Technically, the ride's really not that great. The layout's just objectively not that good and thrown together for the record, but I did still have a good time on it. It's the weakest ride I got on that day, but I'm still glad I got on it. So that's it. 4 rides in 4 hours. This park had great operations on most rides, but it's just a very popular place. If you do have a full day here, you should easily be able to get on every roller coaster and many other rides, so pretty much anything you want to get on in one day should be possible. You will be waiting in a lot of lines to get to that goal, but single rider lines can help, and it's still a very enjoyable park to be in. It does feel a little run down and bare bones, it's like a British Six Flags, but I go to amusement parks for amusement, and even if a lot of the day might be waiting around, Thorpe Park does provide amusements. If you're going to the UK for the first time, I'll just say it, Thorpe Park should not really be a priority. If roller coasters are really why you're going to the UK, and Hyperia really speaks to you as a bucket list attraction, then sure, get on Hyperia. The park has some unique perks compared to US parks, but I just think going abroad for Thorpe Park doesn't really seem worth it from my experience. I would try to prioritize Alton Towers to get a day there. That's a genuine must for the UK from my experience. But make sure you experience things outside of theme parks if you go to the UK. There is so much more to see. Overall, while I am a little bummed I missed out on Swarm and Nemesis Inferno and every non-roller coaster, I'm glad I didn't spend a full day here because there was much more in the UK to see that I'm glad I focused my time on. Still, it is pretty much a great park, and almost definitely one of the most fun amusement parks to visit in the UK. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your thoughts on Thorpe Park if you've been, or any questions you have. I will do my best to answer them. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.